Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to talk about 5 miniatures games that deserve a second look. Batman Miniatures Game by Knight Models. Batman Miniatures Game has been around since 2012 in its original form, and those initial rules were available as an online download. It suffered from originally being written in Spanish and then having a very poorly translated English version, which stopped the game from growing. The metal miniatures were actually fantastic sculpts, however, and people seem to pick these up just to paint and collect, so the game managed to keep a foothold. Not long after that, Knight Models hired a copywriter and the original hardback first edition rulebook was released. It had some fantastic art and the layout was really nice, however it still suffered from some of the holes in the rule set. There was no obvious entry point into the game as the models were all released as individual packs, and there was no starter box, so it was really hard to get into unless you knew somebody that already played the game. In 2016, a Suicide Squad starter box was released to tie in with the movie of the same name that was being released that year, and it also included a bit of a tidied up and rebooted rule set. Confusingly, after this release, Knight Models announced they were going to do a 2.0 version of the Batman Miniatures Game rule set. That's exactly what Knight Models did. They tidied up the rules, they amended all of the errata and the FAQs, they took all of the rules that were in the expansion books and put them all into a version 2 rulebook. At this point in time, the miniatures also moved away from metal into resin. There was also some introductions of faction starter boxes too, and the rules are available as a free online download. Version 2 wasn't so much of an overhaul of the game, but more of a polishing of the rules, and that's why now is the perfect time to give Batman Miniatures Game a second look. Deadzone by Mantic Games. Deadzone was launched on Kickstarter in April 2013 and raised a not too shabby $1.2 million. It released to retail in 2014 and was something very different to your normal sci-fi skirmish games. The game was played on a 2-foot by 2-foot mat and was divided up into 3-inch cubes, which meant your movement was not controlled by measuring with a tape measure, but by how many cubes you moved. It also brought height into the game, so you could move up and down in those cubes as well as around the mat, and the terrain that Mantic produced for this game was also a really nice addition. Now the game, whilst being a lot of fun, did have its issues, especially with a bit of a clunky card mechanic which made the game less streamlined than it could have been. Fast forward to 2016 and an updated 2.0 rule set was kickstarted and launched, which saw the removal of that card mechanic and the introduction of command dice, which was a really nice twist. In the summer of 2018, Mantic released Outbreak. This was the new supplement for Deadzone, which saw the inclusion of 2 new factions, some new scenarios, and some extra abilities and equipment. This gave Deadzone a new injection of life, and the summer campaign that ran alongside it saw the community really support it and also brought in some new players. The release of Kill Team in 2018 might have stolen some of the skirmish game limelight. However, with a growing community and lots of Deadzone events in the wargaming calendar, there's never been a better time to give Deadzone a second look. Malfifaux by Weird Miniatures. You might find it hard to believe, but Malfifaux has been around for almost 10 years now. It released at Gen Con in 2009 and brought something very different to a tabletop miniatures skirmish game. There were no dice in this game, instead it was controlled by a deck of cards. The theme was very Victorian, sci-fi, steampunk, Wild West, and was very different to the glut of sci-fi and fantasy games that were on the market at the time. This actually gave it quite a broad appeal and attracted quite a lot of female gamers. The game was a big success and helped along by a really rich background, some beautiful miniatures, and a great rule set. The game went from strength to strength. However, with all games that start out this well, there tends to be over time a bit of a bloat in the rule set, and it got to a point where the rules were spread out over 3 different books. So in 2012, a 1.5 version of the rules was brought in to tidy this up. At this point, the game was becoming a little too rules heavy, so in October 2013, a 2.0 version of the rules called M2E was released. This was an attempt to streamline the rules, make it more accessible to new players. However, not only did they completely overhaul the rules, but they completely overhauled the miniatures range at the same time. This left the game in a sort of weird, pardon the pun, sort of weird place. The models were released in waves, they moved from metal to plastic, and the game's popularity took a little bit of a hit. A lot of the first edition players didn't like the changes and decided to move on to other games, me included. Now in 2019, Weird have announced a 3rd edition of the rules, and it's currently on their website available to download in its final beta stage. They've also confirmed that once the game releases, the rules and the stats will all be available free on their website. Now is a great time to explore the world of Malfifaux, give it a second look and have a look over those M3E rules. Star Wars Legion by Fantasy Flight Games. Now, I never thought I'd see myself saying that Star Wars Legion deserves a second look. I was hyped for this game and really saw it as the next big thing. However, when it launched at retail in March 2018, there was a distinct lack of stuff available for the game. This continued with a relatively slow release schedule through 2018 and saw only 2 factions having very limited options. This meant that you saw a lot of the same lists because of the lack of variety. Now, FFG have seen what happens when you have a very slow release to a miniatures game, and recently they announced that they were no longer supporting Rune Wars with organised play. And to be honest, if it hadn't been for that really big Star Wars license, I think this could have gone the same way. However, we're now 12 months on from release and the game has a much bigger catalogue of miniatures available. The addition of some fan favourites like Han Solo, Chewbacca and Boba Fett have helped its popularity, and along with the recent announcement that vehicles will be entering the game, sees us have a bit of a wider choice. If you decided to wait and see how this game would go, or maybe you bought the core set and then dipped out, now's the perfect time to see where the game's at. If you're a big Star Wars fan, the game really does feel like Star Wars, so now's a great time to give it a second look. Wild West Exodus by Warcradle Studios. Now, for many people, this might be a game that needs a third look. The original game was created by Outlaw Miniatures in 2012 and was sold to its current owners, Warcradle Studios, in 2016. That original game was launched as 2 big Kickstarters, and it did see the range grow probably too fast. This resulted in a largely unbalanced rules and stat lines. Warcradle then took over the game, completely rewriting the rule set rather than a 2.0 edition in 2017. Now, one of the reasons I think this deserves a second look is because for a large part of 2017 and 2018, the rules were still in development. The game was available to purchase, however the rules were constantly being updated, tweaked and adjusted, and this made it very difficult to get a foothold in a new game. The range of miniatures is frankly beautiful, and the weird Wild West theme really does grab me. I had a demo of the game, and at that point I felt it had too many moving parts, and the rules weren't in a stable place that I'd want to spend time learning the game and then keep up with the constant changes. Now we're in 2019 and the game is in a much more settled place. The faction boxes that are available are a great place to start, and the game just keeps getting new releases. Warcradle appear to be in this for the long haul and have a presence at gaming conventions like no other miniatures companies I've ever seen. You can't go anywhere in our hobby without seeing a very impressive Wild West Exodus stand. The community seems to be growing around this game, and I'm hearing some great reports about what a fantastic game this has become, so maybe this is the perfect time to give this game a second or even a third look. So what do you think, folks? Is there any games you think I've missed from this list? Is there any games that you've already given a second look to and you've been really happy that you did? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.